Hey everybody, happy Sunday. I hope that wherever you are and whatever you are doing, you are having a really amazing weekend. I am having one of those weeks. If you want to know why, go and watch the Chicken and Garden Update where I explain everything. But let's get to the meat of today's video, namely the concept of having EVs with expandable battery packs. We drive around in massive electric vehicles. I particularly have a massive electric vehicle. My camera is standing on the bed of my F-150 Lightning Lariat extended range. And well, 90% of the time, a truck like this is not used by its owner for the massive range that the truck promises on its EPA sticker. Even this truck, which now has just under 15,000 miles on the clock after just about 6 months of ownership, we do drive this a long way. We do use it to carry large amounts of equipment to events. We take road trips in it. We have gone and got wood and farm supplies in it, and it is used in a much more practical way than a lot of people who own a vehicle like this would use it. But even when you talk about cars, your average electric car doesn't drive 300 miles a day. It maybe drives 40 or 50 miles a day maximum. And some people can go an entire week not plugging their EV in to charge and still have range remaining at the end of the week when they go and find a charging station to plug in. And if you don't have access to at-home charging, having a car with a sizable battery pack, talk 60, 70 kilowatt hours, makes a lot of sense because you don't have the ability to charge it every day. And while the availability of charging is a completely different topic for another video, if that is you and you have no access to off-street charging and parking, going and sitting at a rapid charger once a week to fill up your battery pack to have 300 or 400 miles of range makes total sense. But if you have at-home charging, as a lot of EV owners do, then driving around in a car that has 300-400 miles of range when you only use 30, 40, 50 per day is a bit of an overkill. And because of the size of your average new EV battery pack, we're seeing this gradual march towards much more expensive, higher-end vehicles. And that march towards higher-end, more expensive vehicles means that a lot of people who would otherwise consider buying a shorter range, smaller car are not able to, because automakers they're not being forced, they are choosing to make huge vehicles with massive battery packs because they believe that's what the market wants. But that in turn makes those vehicles not only more dangerous for other road users, especially cyclists, pedestrians, and scooter users, but it also means that you're carrying around a lot of extra weight. That makes the vehicle more inefficient, and that means you're not using that small range that you need on a daily basis in any real efficient way. Now, a solution to that is to design EVs with a dual battery pack system. I'm not talking about swappable batteries. I'm talking about something similar to what we saw from Fiat with the Centoventi electric concept car that we actually saw ourselves at CES 2020. The idea behind the Centoventi is that it is a car that you have a small capacity battery pack in that you use for daily use, and then when you want to go on a long distance trip, you either buy or borrow or rent or whatever you want to call it, larger capacity battery packs that just slot into your vehicle, into available slots within the vehicle that allow you to make a longer distance trip that's 300 or 400 miles in length without needing to stop to recharge. And then when you get back home after you've made your trip, if you no longer need that extra capacity, you hand those batteries back. And the benefit of that is actually pretty big. while there are some limitations to such a system, it would be quite difficult, for example, to have liquid-cooled battery packs operating in that kind of setup, because you'd have to have quick release and quick attach liquid components that were able to automatically bleed themselves and make sure that there was no air bubbles in the system when you added those extra battery packs. So that's a kind of an engineering challenge, but you could have a much lower vehicle production and sticker price, because if you're putting a battery pack in an EV that is 20 or 30 kilowatt hours and you're charging drivers to have that, that's the permanent battery pack that's always in your vehicle, 20 to 30 kilowatt hours, and should be fine for 90% of your use, then you could theoretically have a different battery pack and maybe a different chemistry for longer distance trips. And one way around that would, for example, be to have a lithium-ion battery pack in your car for sporty round town driving around your local community, that gives you great performance on the freeway, that gives you a lightweight, efficient vehicle. And then you have a lithium iron phosphate modular battery pack that you slot in that allows you to make longer distance trips. And lithium iron phosphate batteries have a much longer lifespan. They don't like cold weather for sure, but they have some other benefits that would mean that they would be a perfect candidate for that extended range. Or maybe if you are particularly interested, you could rent maybe an aluminium air battery, which are much more exotic in terms of what they offer. They're not maybe a practical everyday use battery pack, but they might be great for giving you incredible range extension for those super long distance trips where you really don't want to stop and recharge. Aluminum air or aluminium air are great because they bring in air from outside to chemically use inside the battery pack. So that is clever, and that halves the physical size of the battery pack and makes it a lot more compact for the given energy density. I'm kind of skimming over. I know I'm not being completely accurate in that, and I apologize, but that is also an option. So I would be interested to know if you would want to have a car that offered that as a functionality, because there are some downsides to it, right? For a start, you don't have that long range battery pack available to you at the drop of a hat. You've always got to go and pick up that battery pack for the long distance trip. And the second thing is, you don't necessarily always know when you're going to be able to do those trips, and you may not want to use a battery whose provenance or previous use cycles is an unknown to you. It would require some careful business planning from whoever offered this as a service to make sure that you had an SLA, to make sure that you had an acceptable battery capacity and performance at which the company promised they would give you a battery that met those requirements. And if the batteries dropped below that, they wouldn't actually put it in your car. Or maybe you pay more for a battery that's newer and less for a battery that is a bit older and maybe has a current limit applied to it. So, the newer batteries go in the fancy big cars and big pickup trucks that need higher current demands, but then you can rent those same battery packs, same physical slot-in battery packs for shorter range or lower power vehicles. If you think about the power demands of my Chevrolet Bolt EV and compare it to the power demands of my F-150 Lightning, they have very different power demands. That car, the Bolt, uses a fraction of the energy to move along that the F-150 Lightning does, which is why we try and use the Bolt for all of our local trips and save this for longer distance or hauling. Anyway, I would love to know your thoughts. Please leave them in the comments below, because I think everyone needs to switch over away from fossil fuels, whether that is through using bicycles, using car share schemes, using public transit, buying more efficient, more environmentally friendly personal vehicles like electric cars. We've all got to make this transition. We've got to make it soon. And so we have to come up with more novel and interesting ideas to make sure that the battery packs that we are building and using aren't just all being shoehorned into super expensive 100,000+ vehicles. like high-end Teslas or Hummer EVs or even F-150 Lightning pickup trucks. Let's be honest, this is an expensive truck, and for most of the time we don't use the battery capacity that this truck offers. And I don't think I'd have a problem coming and swapping the battery out for a long distance trip if it meant I didn't have to rely on an unreliable charging network at the same time. Anyway, on that note, we are done with today's video. If you liked it, you know what to do, and feel free to tip us with a super thanks. The comments are open for your thoughts, as is our Discord chat room. There is a link below. If you want more, subscribe, hit the bell, and follow the links to support us with a YouTube membership or a Patreon subscription. You'll also find links to our Ko-Fi, Bitcoin, and Swag store. And check us out on Mastodon, because we have our own Transport Evolved Mastodon server. All the cool kids are following us there. Scrolling on my right is our list of charged up supporters, and shout outs go out to our self-driving tier supporters: Mike Weeder, Linda Irish, Sean Tucker, Patrick Boyarski, Paul Nelson, Chris Maxwell, Brian Newton, Michael Goad, Bennett Elder, Andrew Martin, Pedro Moa Pinheiro, Brophy Wolf, Chris and Michael Johnson, Tazla in the Gong, Dan Blair, Peter Dillinger, Gordon C, Stephen O'Donoghue, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Regine Fellows, Denny Hyde, Chris Centaur, and Jim Burness. Finally, out of this world thanks to our top tier supporters. They are Andrew Glenn, Anonymous Freak, JP Fagerback, Joe Brosney, John Lyons, Rory Litwin, Kevin Boroughbridge, Dave Kitchen, Aaron Hahn, Laura Reynolds, Marcel Ward, Matthew Drobnak, Paul Conway, Reggie Watts, Will Graylin, and Ian. I'll be back soon with more awesome content, both here and on the main channel, as all the lovely Kate Walton Elliott and the rest of the TE family. So until then, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe, and as always, keep evolving.